everyone. I'm a few years late to the party in this instance, but I really wanted to cover the Stilt Man Builder-Figure because it's one of my favourites that Hasbro have produced in recent years. Now, as ever with the Builder-Figure wave, the Builder-Figure has to be pretty impressive. It has to encourage you to pick up the figures that make up the entire wave, and this can be a very hit and miss approach depending on the quality of the Builder-Figure itself, but also the individual figures that make up that wave, and that can definitely make it a little bit tricky as a collector because it all depends on the theme of the wave and just how many of those figures you actually really want. Now, in the case of the Stilt Man wave, I have to be honest, I passed on pretty much all of these because the majority of the wave was very much tied into Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and as a rule, I don't tend to pick up any of the movie-related Marvel Legends figures. I tend to just stick to the comic books and the animated series figures. The only comic book related characters here are Frogman and the Hand Ninja. Now, the Hand Ninja I think is pretty cool, but Frogman, not so much. And therein lies the central problem with Builder-Figure waves. Now, I really wanted Stilt Man. I thought he was absolutely cool, but I didn't really want many or any of these figures in this particular wave, and I think if you're going to release a wave, at least if they're all consistently part of one universe or one theme, then you're much more likely to be happy building these builder figures and seeing it as a good return on investment. Whereas when you have these split waves, what Hasbro are doing is essentially forcing people to pick up figures that they may not actually want if they want to get a fantastic builder figure, and that is naturally going to frustrate a lot of collectors. But all that being said, I think Stilt Man is an absolutely fantastic figure, and I want to take a closer look at him with you today. Now, first and foremost, the thing I have to say about this Builder-Figure is that I love how different it is to any other Builder-Figure we've ever had. And of course, that's down to those incredibly long stilt-like legs. Now, I really like the sculpting on this figure. A lot of it feels quite new and fresh. Obviously, it's a brand new head sculpt. He has a brand new body piece, which is a separate piece, and creates that shell-like hood or backpack. Obviously, he has those special antennae, and I don't believe I've seen them anywhere else before either. And I also think that the central torso might be new as well. I'm not sure whether I've seen this anywhere else before, but it looks a little bit different to the standard body that we've seen on some of the other figures in this line. So I might be mistaken on that, but that also looks a little bit new to my eyes. Now, this all looks absolutely fantastic. I'm really pleased with the sculpting. I really like it, the look, the smirk on his face. I think that's a really cool character detail. Captures the arrogance of the character, which I think is pretty cool. I think this looks really good. So top marks for the sculpting. I think this looks absolutely fantastic. Where I would be a little bit more critical though is in terms of paint apps, because well, there aren't any washes, there's no real highlights, there's no real paint added to this figure at all. It is just presented in that base plastic mold. Now, the plastic they've used is actually a sort of shiny, slightly metallic kind of quality. Not quite, but you know, it catches the light quite nicely. And I think that is probably enough to justify it, saying they're going for that sort of silver effect, and I think that absolutely works. So I'm happy to overlook it and forgive it. That said, would have I appreciated a nice paint wash running over this paint to just give it a sense of detail and texture, really capitalise on that sculpting? Absolutely, and I think it's a shame that we didn't get that, and it's one of the things that's missing from this figure, but otherwise, I can't really fault it. I really think this is a great looking figure visually. Of course, the legs are completely unique, actually. I don't think they've ever been recycled or reused anywhere else. And they're pretty interesting because they don't lend themselves to balancing particularly well. And to be fair, this actually does manage the job, although thankfully it does come with this translucent base, which actually makes them a little bit easier to balance. Thankfully, there are peg holes at the bottom of the feet that will allow him to be more posed and make sure he's much more secure. So this is all pretty nice stuff. I'm also pleasantly surprised by the articulation. He does have a ball joint at the top of the head, as you would expect, and I thought there might be some problems there with this shell, but actually he can move his head from side to side, he can lean it left and right. It's not a huge range of motion, there is some resistance there because of that shell, and of course you have to be prepared to tuck the antennae inside the shell as well, but all in all, this works surprisingly well, and you actually get a lot more movement out of it than I was anticipating. Of course, there's ball joints in the shoulders, allowing those arms to lift all the way up and out. There is that complementary bicep swivel there, double joint at the elbow, of course, and there is a pin swivel at the wrist, as you would expect. That hand can rotate all the way around, and it will, of course, hinge forwards and backwards as well. He has a straight swivel at the waist, so of course he can rotate all the way around, and he also has an ab crunch there in the centre of the chest, so he can bend forwards and backwards, although to be fair, he really only bends forwards. There's ball joints in the hips, the legs will kick out to the side, they'll also kick forwards, and interestingly, there's actually ball joints in the bottom of the stilts as well, allowing the lower part of the stilt, the foot I suppose, to hinge forwards and backwards ever so slightly. Now, practically, I'm not sure how much use this actually is, but it's a really cool option. Now, the other really cool thing about this Build-A-Figure is it also comes with quite a few different accessories as well, including an alternate pair of closed fists, his pistol, and this briefcase filled with money, which actually opens up. And I think this is a really cool set of accessories to give this character. And it also means, crucially, that we get to create a number of different cool and exciting looks for this figure as well when he's on display. And I think he looks absolutely tremendous. Of course, he has no issue holding his briefcase or his pistol there. I think this looks really, really cool and just makes him visually just even more striking. Now, for a quick scale comparison, here he is standing next to a standard Marvel Legends Daredevil figure. As you can see, there is a huge height differential. This is really, really cool and very effective. This grows significantly if we put him next to a Wolverine who comes in slightly under scale in this line. And then here he is next to the Thing, who's obviously slightly more oversized, one of the bigger figures in this line. So again, as you can see, obviously towers above the Thing there. And this is really, really cool. But that's not all, because you could actually pick up an extra pair of legs, an extra pair of stilts, and you can extend this figure even taller. So here he is with an extra pair of stilts, again, standing next to Daredevil, as you can see, really, really tall now, to the point where it's almost impractical, and there is a danger that he will topple from side to side. So you'll definitely need a stand to support him if you're going to do this. But in theory, there's nothing to stop you getting another pair of stilts, and so on and so forth, and you can actually have a really, really giant Stiltman if you wanted. I think this is a really fun idea, and I love that they've built this in with the option to be able to really extend your Stiltman as much as you want. So I think this is really cool, and I think it's really creative, and I have to give Hasbro top marks for it. Which leads nicely onto my star rating, and I'm going to give this figure 5 stars. Yeah, definitely top of the tree. I don't often hand out 5 stars, but I love this Build-A-Figure so much. I love that it's so different to anything else that we are given in the Marvel Legends line. I love that he feels very distinctive, very unique, has his own personality. I think it just looks and feels very, very different to anything else in the collection so far. I think they've done a really nice job of bringing this character to life in the Marvel Legends line. I love his articulation. I love that they've thought it through so that you can actually extend those legs if you want to, and they also furnish him with some pretty cool accessories to boot. So what's not to love about this figure, really? Obviously, I appreciate it will come down to a little bit how much you like the character from the comic books. To be honest, I'm not hugely impressed or a big fan of Stiltman as a character, but I love this figure. I think it's absolutely tremendous, and I just feel like it's so original and so different to anything else that I'm just really impressed with it. I think they've done a really, really good job with this figure. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.